We're going live here in just a few seconds with Jeremy Ryan Slate. He is the founder of Commander Brand. He is a podcast ninja expert, PR. I mean, this guy's everything. You need to know about podcasting and how to use it with entrepreneurial growth. And there's some other bonus stuff in it too. We'll be on just a few minutes, but until we meet in 2 minutes, go unleash that entrepreneur. See you soon. Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Hey, welcome to Never Been Promoted. I'm your host, Thomas Helfrich. Appreciate you guys jumping in here today on our live show. If you're listening later on, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. We're going to be talking about how to use podcasting, believe it or not, with entrepreneurial growth. Like it's a key factor. It's going to be a massive part of SEO in the future. And you see tons and tons of people trying to figure it out and struggling. And Jeremy Ryan Slate is our guest today. He is the founder of Commander Brand and a few other things. You're going to learn so much about podcasting and the power of it. You're going to be blown away with what he does, and I can talk from personal experience. We've leveraged their services today in the past, so I'm speaking firsthand. These guys know what they're doing. So before we bring Jeremy on, one shameless plug is to go to youtube.com and subscribe at Never Been Promoted. And if you're listening to the podcast, 2 seconds is all it really takes. Do the 5-star review. Anything less, you contact me and tell me why you don't think it's five stars, and we'll do what we can to fix it. Enough shameless plugs, Mr. Jeremy Ryan Slate. Get your booty to the stage, sir. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. I was watching that trailer. I think we need to buy you some sharper scissors.
Right? Did you know, metaphorically, it's also a lot more difficult to cut a tie than you think? Do you see how that works?
I feel like it would be pretty easy with the right pair of kitchen shears.
With the right tools, it's easier and cleaner. Also, with guns like you do, that vein is just intimidating. I don't know if you guys know this. If you're not listening, you're not watching. Jeremy can bench press an entire house.
That's definitely not true.
Okay, fine. He can deadlift an entire house. He can bench press the roof.
I've deadlifted a car, but I don't know about like deadlifting a house. That seems like how would you do that?
It's just the equivalent weight. My point is he's strong, like stupid strong. I sent you sometimes on Instagram. I'll take a picture of me lifting fives and be like, "Suck it, Jeremy Ryan's." I think they get washed.
No, you usually like comment on my videos and be like, puny. Like those are the kind of comments I get from you.
Yeah, everyone's like, "Damn, dude, that's awesome!" Like, put another plate there, Antonio.
Oh, you win.
My feed is infected with the guy that shows up as a janitor.
The one that's always deadlifting and like then he's like in janitor's clothes, but he's actually like a pro power lifter.
Right, and he looks like he's like 130 pounds wet, and he's like lifting like things that these giant steroid dudes are like, you can't lift that, man. He's like, let me just add on a couple more plates. These are fake, right? It was awesome. By the way, guys, so Jeremy, before you introduce yourself, I just want you to know you have the finest mustache in the game. 100% number one.
Thank you.
It was a commitment.
It has literally changed my life. I was not relevant until I got the mustache, and now like I've been talking about the Roman Empire for the past year, and I've done all these big shows. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. The reason I grew the mustache is I'm like, shoot, I'm going all these like larger shows talking about the Roman Empire. Like I have to look like I'm old enough to know what I'm talking about because I look like I'm 12 without a mustache.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
Well, no, like let's think about it. Like if you're professorial or you kind of have that like that look, you have to actually know like you're got some life experience, man.
That's true. I mean, just
you got to dress for the job you want, man.
That's true. Ironically, by the way, with my cut tie, I never wore ties in job, and now I wear them all the time, which is, I think, kind of ironic. I don't know why. I mean, it is. All right, listen. You want to set it up? You want to first introduce the few things that you're really kind of focused on. Congratulate the new website looks amazing, by the way. The only thing missing from your scrolling podcast is ours, so we'll talk about that, why that's not on there. But do you want to talk about what you're doing today and back up far enough to kind of how you got there? Set us up with the kind of the journey story.
Yeah. Well, how long you got, man?
It's up to you. It's your show.
Well, I guess for me, as I mentioned, my master's degree, believe it or not, is in the Roman Empire. I studied why do people worship the Emperor Augustus. I found it extremely interesting. When I got out of school, nobody else did. So you come out and you have a useless piece of paper that now you have to pay a lot of money for that you just got. And I actually ended up teaching in a private school for a couple of years. I taught in a Catholic school, and cool. The inner city school next to it had just closed. And I grew up in like the way country, so I'm not prepared to like handle myself in an inner city. When I go into New York, like that's considered a day. So what ended up happening is we had basically these kind of really rich preppy kids, and then the inner city kids came in, and these two camps had me for lunch, man, because I looked like I was like 20 years old teaching them, and I actually had like people that worked with me didn't realize I worked with them and try to give me detention for being out of uniform. It was a little bit crazy. So I got burnt out really, really fast in about 2 years. And in 2012, my mom ended up having a really bad stroke, and she's still super disabled to this day. Like she's lost her language skills, the use of the right side of her body, and it was really hard, man. It was definitely one of the hardest things I've been through, and it made me look at a lot of what I was doing in my life. And like, dude, you could have convinced me that it was profitable to sell garbage on Etsy, and I would have tried it at that point in time because I just wanted to do something different, which actually I think is a career now. I think people actually do that. But anyway, I tried network marketing. I tried online marketing. I sold life insurance, which I was actually really good at. I just hated those conversations about like, so you're going to die, and you wouldn't want anything to happen to your family, right? Because you love you feel like a mafia, like a consigliere every time you're sitting down with somebody.
You like that? What's it? Sarah McLachlan song every time. You just like, hold on, let me key this up. Will you remember me?
Yeah, exactly like that.
Really heavy handed with some music in the background. Like, bye.
Yeah, it's a rough career, man. Like I made some good money doing it, and I definitely helped some people along the way. But you got to be a special type of person to do that. And I don't know, man.
You're an empath. I don't. You can't do that. Empaths can't do that.
No, I'm not an empath. I'm actually the opposite. I don't care enough, if that makes sense.
Oh, is that what it is?
I'm kind of like, so like for me, it's like you got to kind of like wear a set of skills and things that you just don't have, and it isn't you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of like, what do you mean you can't do that? Come on, get over it. Let's do it. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, you're bleeding. Who cares? Whatever. You're bleeding. Put some milk on it. Let the cat lick it away. So for me, I just wasn't good in a career like that. So I ended up starting this company back in 2016. Well, because I started a podcast first in 2015, and it took off, man. We had 10,000 downloads in our first month, and wow. I talked to a lot of people I really admired. And from there, people started asking for help, and Command Your Brand, which was originally called GetFeatured Media, started in 2016.
Yeah, you're and Command Your Brand is I think you label it as a PR agency. It's getting relevant people on the right podcast that have like the right exposure.
Yeah,
because you got fidelity. If you guys don't know this, I'm going to do his pitch a little bit.
Thanks, man.
Right, you get fidelity, which means you're on the show forever, right? Unless you say something stupid, but like you're on the show forever. So people, as they have popular shows, they're going to find you. Mm-hmm. Your SEO is going to find you, and secondly, you hit in one conversation potentially millions of listeners. You can, like, for the price, you can't even buy advertising to come so targeted. So what you guys do is really, really good and really, really relevant.
Thanks, man.
The difference is versus others. is that you actually have personal relationships with these podcast hosts because you've been on them, you personally know these people, and you've met them, and you've built business relationships for almost a decade or more right behind it.
Mhm.
That is the difference, in my opinion, what you guys do versus a million other agencies that are just like I get in my inbox, hey, I got a great guest for you, and I've never met the agency. I'm like, well,
And
here's our full
do they
process.
call you the wrong first name? You know, I love
Oh
when
yeah,
they do
I've been
when they
called
do that.
Anit a lot of times. Hey, Anit. I'm like, hey, who's Anit?
Hello, insert first name here. I would love to
Oh,
be
that's
on
my
insert
favorite.
first name here, where my favorite episode is insert show name here. So like, no, I definitely appreciate that, and I guess for me, like, I'm somebody that I wear what I do, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I'm a product. It's a network marketing phrase. I'm a product of the product, right? Like I'm somebody that, you know, I use what I do. And even for the last year, as I've been having all these conversations about the Roman Empire, the cool thing is it's brought in a whole different caliber and type of show we've been able to book our clients on now, because we kind of use me as the ability to get the contact and create the conversation. And now we have a new established contact we can book clients on. So it's kind of fun, man, to be able to work on both sides of it.
So take me through that. So I get your. I was going to ask you this today specifically because I follow your stuff on social and poke the bear occasionally for fun. But I see you've been doing the Roman Empire, and
Yeah.
I've never really interjected in there because I'm like I'm trying to decipher what the marketing angle is for what you're doing. I didn't realize you had the history.
There's none. There's no marketing angle whatsoever.
All right, so guys, I'm going to give you entrepreneurs listening. That is the wrong way to do a podcast. Is not to have a monetization idea. Now you have something though. It gives you a new
Correct.
topic to go meet a whole bunch of new podcasts.
Correct.
Okay. So it's not, I was like, man, how's he tying this into Command Your Brand? I was like, is he running for office soon? I was like,
No, I have no desire to run for office. Politics is a trap.
That's what they all
Red
say.
team, blue team does not work.
We'll get you a tie that has lots of colors in.
Oh, well, that's the whole another political situation that we might not want to get into.
I didn't know. I mean, I'm just going to help you out here, however your audience. So what do you do with okay, you have Command Your Brand.
Yeah.
You have another thing I think you'd put in there was Command Your Empire.
So Command Your Empire is how we've connected Command Your Brand to me talking about the Roman Empire. It's a great resource for anyone out there listening that wants to get attention online and, you know, get a track motion and do that. So Command Your Empire is actually 100% free. If you want to contact me, there's a way to do that over there, but we want to help you realize how to use the new media in the PR world, and we've just put together a great resource for that for all these people that have been listening to me yak about the Roman Empire, man.
I mean, it's super interesting, and it's, you know, if you think about podcasting, I want to tie it back to our title about how you use it for entrepreneurial growth. I think first and foremost, the business plan just simply is you're getting new contacts of new shows so you can give them value with better guests down the road. That's part of the strategy. Is that probably correct?
Yeah, it's two different sides. It's one of it is just shamelessly, I love talking about the Roman Empire, and this is what I've done in private my entire life. And I'm like, wait, people care now? That's amazing. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is also it's supply side for us, right? Like we're always constantly trying to get our clients on better and bigger shows. And that's a really good way to bring them in, is a really unique and cool conversation, right? So that's been part of it as well. But there's also the positioning of me as a guest too, right? Because, you know, as I do bigger conversations in bigger places, that enhances not just my credibility, but the credibility of my company. And I think when you think about it, there's a lot of different things, whether you're a business owner, that you're considering, you know, in doing media placements. You know, like, sure, it could, I think oftentimes what people are thinking, Thomas, is they're like, okay, well, how many leads did I get from this conversation? And I think for many people, that's the wrong way to go about it. It's, you know, what positioning did I achieve? You know, what people did I connect with, and how did I grow my network or my influence? And that's what this is all about, man. That's why I think podcasting really essentially is a great PR strategy.
It is. And I try to find these little nuggets along the way for people who are listening. So one thing I would say is, if you're just first starting out, and you can challenge this if you otherwise, get the problem you solve, get out there, start ringing the cash register to solve that problem, period.
Yes.
And just repeat that and refine it.
Yes. Yeah. Because I think there's the people that put the cart before the horse.
Right.
There's people that put the cart before the horse. They like want to get all the attention for the thing that doesn't make money yet. And it's like, get a great quality business where you have a viable final product people are exchanging money for. But continue, man.
Well, no, that's it. Because the truth is, so this is where people go wrong. They hire marketing agencies to do all kinds of things, email, like that aren't relying around just ringing that cash register.
There's no proof of concept.
Exactly. And you're also a shitty guest at that point too, just to be fair. You are, because you haven't practiced enough. And one thing you guys probably don't realize when you kind of work with Jeremy and his team, they put you on the show. They give you some feedback. You guys gave me some feedback. Hey, super knowledgeable, came across salesy. I'm like, I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Probably should cut your tie in half.
Right. Like, no, that's my own brand. I was bored one day. You don't get credit for that one. That's mine. Take it back. He told me I need a better tie. Anyway, the point is you are a shitty guest at that point. And what I mean by that is you don't have the smoothest typically of your own story and what you're solving for the world to tie it to a relevant thing without sounding pitchy. And so when I first used you guys, I was a little too early probably because I was trying to get brand awareness, understanding that game was like, that's where we want to be. I'd be a much better customer now because I'd be like, hey, I've touched 1,000 entrepreneurs now. And so you're wasting your money a little bit.
Don't touch 1,000 entrepreneurs. There's legal ramifications.
I have touched them. I mean, like digitally. It's good. Real deep. And I'm gonna go sexy voice guy now. I mean, sometimes you got to touch an entrepreneur to really get to know them deep. How deep is too deep? I don't think it exists. You can't bottom out.
Terrified.
You're gonna help me figure out how to make that podcast. By the way, if you guys don't know this, if you catch this right now, Sexy Voice Guy is actually a podcast I have. And it's my experimental place where I just do stupid 3-minute shows on humor of like, how to trim your bushes before those friends come over. Because you don't want them around the back door. It's dirty back there. Shit's everywhere.
Oh,
anyway.
No.
Anyway, that's not what you do though.
No, I definitely don't do that.
So the point of it is when you're on your journey, use this at the right moment.
Yes.
When do you think is the right moment when someone should, and I guess two things. One's the right moment, and what is that entrepreneur currently, what other choices are they thinking at this point and why they should pick this one to say over something else?
So I guess most people aren't going to like my answer because I think you definitely should always be doing some sort of public relations, right? Because you got to get people to know you, like you, and trust you. But I think for a lot of people, they have this certain idea of the caliber of a podcast they want to go on. And if you don't have the stats or achievements to match up with that, like ain't nobody that can get that for you. And I think that's what you have to understand because it's the match of your credibility and your achievements with somebody having the right connections and ability to do it for you. So I think that's one part of it. Now, I will say though, for most people, if you're not doing this for vanity and you're just like, hey, I need to get it in front of the right market and have the right conversations, and you're actually niching down in the shows you're going on, I would say, like Thomas said, it's after that point you have some proof of concept. It's after that time you're profitable. Like you shouldn't be going on podcasts if you're like, I have to get $1 out of this or I'm going to die. The point is you want to be getting more people to trust you to help your marketing convert better and to also help more people understand what you do, right? So you kind of have to be past the critical mass point. You shouldn't expect podcasts to be your critical mass because it's really about getting that mission out there and helping other people and kind of making a bigger impact. It's not a sales machine. But if you're in the right position, it can enhance your ability and kind of jump you to the next level faster than anything you've ever done before. So I think it's really understanding like, okay, we've got a profitable business. We're in the high 6 figures now at this point. We've got a decent sized team. Let's go on the right niche podcast and let's really make an impact here because then you are talking to the right market. But I think for a lot of people, like, dude, you just got to spend some time learning how to make money. I think that is a really, really important thing because you have to also have value to the end user,
Well, I just released, it's funny. So we have a really good YouTube channel going, right? And we haven't done actually any really YouTube videos. We're just a video podcast. I think you and I are both on the same page. If you're getting into podcasting and you are a podcaster and you're not on YouTube, you need to get on. You're missing a giant opportunity to get ahead of a curve on something because they're going to compete head to head with Apple and I think beat them because they don't only have Android users, they have all the Apple users too. So they have everybody. Anyway, that being said, you get out there, you make your podcast, you build it up, you do the things you do, but to get on the shows to add value, you talked about being able to ring that register, right? So the thing that we had just created was like, hey, stop raising funds, raise hell, right? Like get out there and start ringing that. Like 99% of the people are never going to raise money outside of grandma and friends. So take that money and go, but then forget it. I believe once you do, if you don't know specifically, you need to be on the 7 marketing podcasts because you have a new digital tool that does something for marketers. Until you know that, you don't know which podcast or who you should even talk to or what you should be saying as opposed to understanding their problems.
That's
because
correct.
You don't need a lot. You just got to get the right audience and let them hear you a few times.
Yeah, because I think for most people, like when they're not in that position, they want to be on the podcast with my perfect audience, with their checkbook out. Do people still do checks? Like with their Bitcoin wallets out. I don't know, whatever it is, where somebody's ready to pay right away, and they just if I get in front of this many people buy, whatever it is, like this isn't an ad. And I think that's what you really need to understand is you're trying to create a caliber type of show and a reaction from a show that doesn't exist. You need to be at a point where you need to sell more, man. And a lot of times I remember when I started the company I ran before this one, like, dude, I was doing door-to-door sales for personal training because I knew that's what worked and I knew that was how I can get in front of more people. To achieve critical mass, it's a sales problem for most people. You need to get in front of more people. You need to make more sales. And a lot of times you got to make them yourself so you understand the end user.
Yep.
And you get to a certain point where like you have a business that's running and it starts to run without you a bit. Well, now you, the founder, have some time. So I think also you'll see companies that maybe they are at a next level and they'll try to take a C-suite executive and stick them on podcasts to represent the company. And that's also a really bad idea because that person doesn't have the brand story and doesn't have something that the company is tied to. So I think it's very important that the person doing interviews is the person that started the thing. I think it's vital, but you need to be in a position where, and we see this with a lot of doctors actually, we work with a lot of holistic and functional practitioners where if you have to be in your office 9 to 5 doing seeing patients, this is not going to be a good situation because you're not going to have enough time open in your schedule to do podcasts. So it really creates this thing of, okay, so maybe you're seeing patients 2 days a week, right? Because now you have somebody else in your office that's helping with that. But you've got to get to the point where this thing is profitable enough. You've got a little bit of time. So now you can start to do things where you represent your brand.
And I think this ties to, so let's go back to where else. You ring the cash register. You have
and I appreciate you mentioning that, by the way, because not a lot of people mention what you're saying right now about ringing the cash register.
You have to do that. You have to make money first and understand what you solve, and don't get too thin. Don't do so. You're starting to make money. You've gone from like a few $100s to a few thousand. Now you're repeating it. And now you're like, okay, look, I've just crossed my W-2 income, and I think we're going to keep doing it. Then you're going to get into the spot of ancillary marketing that goes outside of sales, which allows you to raise your executive eminence, your personal brand. When people search for you, you check out. So when people check you out, you check out. This is where this stuff starts. It's the next layer out.
Yes.
And some people think it's further out. I actually think this is one of the next layers. And I think that is when you write a book, and this is when you start writing more content. This is when you start talking and showing your thought authority on it, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's the right word or not, but this is where this exists. But it cannot be one thing you're doing. So where you're marketing and tight to sell, that could be one thing. Facebook ads, it's crushing. We repeat it, whatever it is. This is when you start getting out, you're going to need multi-channel. So I think podcasting is one of it. I think getting on, doing YouTube or some kind of video or writing articles on Medium, you need a few things to start doing the personal brand and the shaping around that. In my opinion, I think this is one of them. And you do have to start with one, but I do think starting with podcasting gives you the biggest exposure quickly. And then leveraging those conversations to do the second thing, which could be like the writing. I was on this podcast, and then you're giving them attention. So talk about like that ancillary, that second layer of marketing that helps you go. And then I want to dive into what you do for the podcasters once you go on there, because I think this is this thing that people miss all the time. So what do you think about that from like, what do they tie it with? Like, because it can't just be by the only thing they're doing.
Well, I think that's a really important point too, because this goes back to putting the cart before the horse, like we were talking about a few minutes ago. Because I think, and I'm sorry to the coaches out there that do a good job and help people, but I think there's a large percentage of coaches on Instagram especially that have kind of changed how people look at this. There's a kind of a layer of people that want to make money off being famous for being famous, right? Like, okay, so I'll get really well known and then people will pay me to coach them or pay me to consult them or whatever it might be. And that is so bass backwards, man. It is basically getting yourself to a point where, now you need to get the message out there and get people to understand it better, right? Like you started selling, you started making things move, but now you're kind of hitting this barrier. This barrier is that maybe enough people don't understand what you do, right? So you're not going to be able to get past that kind of that plateau unless you educate better. And I think you're talking about writing a book and being on podcasts. That's where that falls in. Because you're taking people that should be your prospective customer that maybe have an awareness of who you are or have a slight understanding of what you do, but you're actually taking them and giving them some education now. So they're becoming not just a better prospect, but a better referral source or a better information source, right? I've referred a lot of products to people that I've heard on podcasts because I understand how they work better. And I think that's what you really have to consider as you get to that point where now, okay, we've made some money. the lights are not going to go off if I don't sell anything today. But now we need to make sure that we get our mission out there better and get people to a level where they can understand what we do better, because we're going to top out if we don't do that. You become an education company at a certain point in addition to a delivery company, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And so I have a philosophy on social media that you should just, I know like Gary Vee says, jab, jab, punch. That's too aggressive in my opinion, because it's like you're asking people to buy from you every third conversation. Anyway, the point is get out there and just give value and get your personal brand and stuff set up in a way that people come to you to buy. And you can do sales channels outside of that, but from a content standpoint, just give value. I don't,
especially early on, man. Like I think the right process is probably 50 jabs and then a punch, right? I think that's what you're looking at, because you really, 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 really have to generate trust, because that trust can be earned over a long period of time and it can be wasted so fast. So that's what you really have to understand. And I think the thing is interesting as well, Thomas, is like you have to be much more thoughtful now with what the punch looks like, because the consumer has changed so much. So if you punch in the wrong way, you can ruin everything. So I think it's also understanding that the nuance and how you do the asks and things like that.
Agreed. And that's good. How you punch matters, but I will say, but if you're doing, let's say, email marketing, for example, I'd rather just get one that says, hey, this is the value I provide. If you're in that spot in your life, you think you might need this, here's how to just kind of have the first conversation, and just send me one. I'm more likely to click on that than you warming me up for fucking it.
Because we're in this weird position right now where the consumer understands the internet really well, whereas 5-10 years ago you couldn't say that. So now they're kind of like, all right, I'm in your 7-day sequence. When does the text message come? So you have to understand the consumer has gotten really intelligent now. So now it's about the level of quality of content you can provide them, and frankly, I think it's also not overwhelming them as well. Like we used to send daily emails. We don't do that anymore. We're about good quality pieces that people actually want to receive, because everybody's doing that. We've gotten to the point where now you stand out by how you're doing something different, because everybody's doing the same thing. And the consumer has gotten very, very smart. They've caught on to, okay, so you have a cookie timer on this page that says it's going to expire in 30 seconds, but if I go in a different browser, then it's not going to have the cookie and I can just buy that thing anyway. So you have the consumer has gotten so intelligent, right, so they can kind of see through a lot of the BS. So it's, I know you're a marketing guy, so you probably have a word for this, but I don't know what to call it. It's kind of almost like you have to be really truthful in marketing now. Like you have to be 100% truthful and authentic in marketing now.
So my personal brand is so anti-spam, like so anti-spam. We don't even email. We've collected emails for 4 years now. We've, I think, sent maybe 4 total. And one was like, hey, we hit top 5% global podcast. If you could, like, since you're on the show, would you jump on there and just comment? And like, it was like a 90-some% open rate. We're like, all right, cool. That was a good one. So anyway, let's come back to podcasts and get away from the email marketing bit. All right. So you let's say you're on that spot, you're listening, like, all right, what do I do? This is where I want you to take this 100%. You go on a show. This is the stuff you should be doing and absolutely don't do either before and after, because this is where you waste the time and effort. And oftentimes the podcast host goes, God, what a dud. And they don't tell you that, but go through, take a few minutes, whatever you need to here, to do that with the do's and don'ts once you decide to go down the podcasting route.
I think one part of it too is not everyone should start a podcast. There's people out there like, everybody should have a podcast, and I think that's kind of like, that's bunk. I don't think everybody. If anybody uses the word bunk,
I'm talking about when you go on somebody else's here, for sure.
Well, no, I want to kind of give the sequence here. Like, if you're going to have a podcast, my recommendation is to actually, even if you're going to have a podcast, go on shows first, because you're going to understand the guest better and you're going to be a better host. So I think everyone should be starting with going on shows, and you may use some discernment of like, okay, maybe I'm really good at this. Maybe I'm terrible at this. Maybe I could use some more practice, or maybe I just would be good at not hosting a show. So I think the discernment of it is important. But I think when you look at the shows, it's about getting in the right niche. So for example, we have a client now that they do financial management, but only for like veterinary offices. That is the nichest of niches, man. But so like, they're very particular about what shows they go on. And you know what? Some of those shows might only have 300, 500 listeners. But I think often people are stuck on tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and many times that net is so wide you can't catch anyone, right? Like you can't bring anyone in or educate anyone. So I think first and foremost is understanding how niche you have to be. Number two, it's understanding that podcasts are a teaching environment. You are there to teach someone how to do something really well in a short period of time. So, don't get esoteric. Don't use special words. Keep it simple. Realize that, and this isn't to be offensive, most people are on a 6th grade reading level. So you want to keep things in a way that people can understand and can actually get something out of what you have to say, because you want to understand that education has 2 parts. It has the theory of it and the practice of it. So the theory of it is people listening to you, hopefully getting some steps and ideas and tips on how to do it. And then whatever you give away is the practical part. It gives them the actual steps to get that full win on what you were teaching. So as I mentioned, like for me, you have it up on the screen now, Command Your Empire, that's our practical. Here's the theory and the way I look at it, but I want you to get some hands-on experience. So you kind of marry those 2 up. So when you're on a show, realize you are the information source, answer those questions to the best of your ability. Don't make it a shameless pitch fest, but also realize you have 2 audiences when you're on a podcast. You have the show that's interviewing you, that host is an audience for you, and also the people listening to you are also an audience for you. And I think that's vital as well, because you could do some great networking with hosts, and I have, and had some incredible business and personal relationships with hosts. So you want to kind of realize those few things. Also, I think people get really stuck on these like framework ideas. You know what I mean, Thomas? Like, okay, so I'm going to speak from stage, and my framework is this 3-part framework, and then we get ready for the pitch, and I got a value stack, and we're ready to go. People try to take that and put it into a podcast, and it comes off as superficial, and it's not real, and it's not human. Podcasts are a conversation where people want to feel like they're a fly on the wall and can learn something. I'm sorry to tell you that your format or your, roadmap or framework doesn't work here. If you cannot be a real human being, it doesn't work. And I think, not to get too political on this, but I think if you look at kind of the Republican presidential campaign over the last year, you have Trump that went on a whole boatload of podcasts, and you have DeSantis that wouldn't go on any. I think he went on one with Patrick Bet-David, and it was a very, very guarded setup conversation for him. So it becomes difficult to see, like, is this a real person? Like, can I trust them? Do I know who they are? And I think to realize that's what podcasts are, you can't make them this super safe media space that people want to have. You have to be willing to be real and sometimes be flawed, man.
Yeah, and I want you to keep going with these kind of advice pieces, because these are beautiful nuggets. So if you've made it to this part in the show, good job. You're getting the juice now. Here it comes.
Yeah, baby.
I will tell you, in our own, you start off with some kind of idea of a format, and what I found was people were so like wound up on the questions I was going to ask them, and they get to the show, and by the time they got to the show, like, hey, we've already changed the format. To just tell me about your story and your journey, and then tell me how you helped the world today. And when we did that created a conversation with 2 people having coffee versus question, answer, and it becomes very repetitive and boring. Yeah. But I say start someplace, but understand if you're not having that conversation, when you're on someone's podcast, unless, I will say with exception, I went on a Top Entrepreneur with Nathan Lotka. It's like a 15-minute, and his hits his.
Oh, and if you don't know your numbers, he's going to have you for lunch, man.
Right. And I barely knew mine, but I also had never really done the research. And so do your research before you go on. But he nails it down, but he's also top of funnel. He's looking for companies to invest in or buy or whatever else. The point being is, unless you're one of those podcasts that are like, hey, we hit it hard, boom, 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 and that's it, you're going to have a conversation. So be prepared to have an actual conversation, regardless if you host one or you're on somebody's. And I think the thing that I think a lot of hosts don't do is a lot of guests, they don't ask questions of the host. And those
what's even wild, man, and this is something I've thought of doing more in-person interviews that I didn't think of as much doing like virtual interviews, is also the aesthetic of the show. This is going to sound like the aesthetic of the show. So I was on Valuetainment, the PBD network, back in May. You show up to their studio in a 3-piece suit because that's what you do, right? I was on Tim Pool's show in March. You show up in a V-neck t-shirt. That's how you do it. The aesthetic of how you show up on a show actually really matters too.
Sure.
Because it's how people see you, perceive you, and whatever it might be. There's so many things that are important to understanding when you're a guest. How you have to appear. Even, not that you have to be the top expert in that show, but understanding like how they discuss topics is pretty important, because how you show up and discuss the topic is going to change.
Right. And so that it's super important to be prepared. It's something I know I've messed up on. And it's obvious sometimes when people come on our show, they don't realize haven't listened to anything, but they're ready. I'm going to tell my story, and I'm like, just don't ever be salesy. So I get it. So be prepared, get ready to have a conversation. That is the best way to go on and host. You owe the show. It goes however it goes. What should that person do next? The guest. And when you're on someone else's show in particular that's bigger than you, any show, but specifically those, what should you be doing as the guest?
I guess I don't understand the question, man.
I mean, afterwards. So I'm leading the witness here that, hey, you need to go promote it and give them attention. But
okay,
a lot of people just go on.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so when you've gone on a show and because what I've seen people that I'm pretty sure you've gotten them on shows, and then I'll follow them, and they won't be doing nearly enough them personal selves after a show.
Well, this is actually a reason we rolled out another service too, where we're doing reels and stuff for people as well, because
they won't do it.
Because that was the biggest part that I saw. Like, I'm going to go back to this Roman Empire campaign, because I've learned so much about, which is wild, man, because this is almost year 9 of what we've been doing this. And I've learned so much from this campaign, because I've always had some motion, but I never had motion like this. Like, it's been different. So what we've ended up doing is we've done a lot of reels and shorts and stuff like that, but also with B-roll, because that matters too, because it keeps the people's attention. You need to be promoting this stuff constantly. There's a few really great tools out there for this. My first favorite one is video.ai. It's a really, really good tool for chopping things up, not just into like the short style, but also like the horizontal like segment style, which is nice too. So video.ai is a great tool for that. This script has some great tools too, because like, let's say you're promoting something and you're like, for me, this is a problem. Like, let's say I said 3rd century AD, and I should have said 2nd century AD. Well, now I look like a total doofus in something I'm promoting. So you can actually use the script to change the voice tone so that you can say the right thing voice-wise in that clip.
I hope it takes like a Spanish accent. A second.
Hola.
Hola. I meant to say second here.
Está un segundo.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
Yeah. So, but that's important, right? So you want to make sure like the content you're promoting grabs eyes. And I'm telling you, man, the difference we've seen in posting just shorts and reels without B-roll and sound effects is 10x.
Yeah.
When we post reels with sound effects and with B-roll, it's dramatic.
What software takes this kind of video and stacks it for you on portrait? So there's one out there. I was hoping maybe if you don't know, it's fine. Like we're side by side, 16:9. There's one that will go like this. And
video AI will do that.
Video AI is the one that does
it'll do that, and it'll stack them.
Because that is like so one of the things we you don't want to manually do that anymore.
You can pull in B-roll in that app too. Like they have a B-roll library you can pull from.
So video AI, I will personally see. Listen, guys, this is the whole reason I started this show.
And it's video.ai. I guess somebody already had like video.ai, so it's vidyo.ai.
And this is why I started the channel, is because I didn't want to pay for coaching. So I just bring people on for an hour or get them to come on and they sponsor their own show. And then I get to learn a shit ton. It's great.
Well, I'll tell you right now, for me, I haven't seen as much movement on TikTok as I like, because I guess I say things that the Chinese government doesn't like. But like on Instagram, I've seen a lot of momentum from there as well. And something we've done too, if you click on your follower number on Instagram, this little thing will come up that kind of looks like a caution sign. And you can actually remove spam followers. So that's something we're doing repeatedly, because sometimes you'll get like spammy accounts that'll follow you, and that affects your reach, right? Like, because if you have too many people that are kind of spammy accounts, then they'll kind of like, you won't see the engagement and stuff you should see. But we're continually doing that, but also like,
is that a tool on Instagram or what's it on?
It's on Instagram. Like you have to do it on the phone. You can't do it on the computer.
So
you go, you open Instagram, you go to your profile, and then it says on the top your number of posts, your number of followers, your number of following. If you click on followers, like the number, it'll say your follower number, and then it'll bring up a little thing that says, looks like a caution sign. It says spam followers. You can actually remove those from your account, and that'll help your engagement, because you're removing, and we do it constantly, right? Because you might always get like new ones in, or maybe somebody doesn't like you and they send bot followers at you. So like those are things that keep your engagement high too.
Yeah. I think all my followers are bot followers.
Oh, damn, man.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know. My camera just got weird.
I saw that. You just went sideways.
I was like, what happened there? Technology's hard, people. Okay. we've covered some stuff here. I want to be conscious of the time here too. Listen, here's what I take away. If you're going to go on podcasts, get a hold of you, and they can do it through commandyourempire.com or even commandyourbrand.com. But Command Your Empire, there's a bunch of free stuff. That's a good spot to start just to get to know you a little bit.
I want people to get that other side of learning. As I said, we talk a lot about theory and the reasons why you should do things, but go out there and get some good experience. And if you feel like at the end of that, like, hey, you need some help, like, great, we'd love to help you. But like, I just want you to go out there and win, man.
Well, and exactly. And I know and I'm speaking from someone who's like, worked with you and known you guys for a while now. You're legit. And like, you're not like, this is not a BS service. This is something though that you do invest in and you do use to further a brand. I would tell you, don't get a hold of Jeremy unless you guys are like, listen, we're an established company. We're just trying to get out of this plateau. That's when you call you. Like that's the time. If you're just starting, follow, watch, learn, go to.
Well, and we've got some great courses for that too. Like, so if you want to check out our courses, we're glad to help you there. But like, from an agency perspective, I don't want to take your money unless I feel like I can get you the result that we're both looking to get you.
Well, exactly. Because if you can't, then it doesn't help your brand.
It doesn't help anybody's brand.
Jeremy, thank you so much, by the way, coming on. Commandyourempire.com. I'm going to drop you into the periwinkle room, but you rock. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on and taking a few minutes. I know you're super busy, so thanks for getting in here today.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me. And also, like, at the same time, we've talked about this stuff in a way different perspective than I ever talk about on shows. This is actually more real, by the way. This is how I talk on a personal level. So thanks for having me on, man.
I appreciate it. Jeremy, thank you so much, guys. If you made it to this point in the show, thank you. You rock. You're awesome. If you've never been here before and this is your first time here, thank you. Like, listen, I hope it's the first of many. We're on that mission to help millions of entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship by unleashing their entrepreneur. And I'm on a mission personally to do this. This is something I want to do for the rest of my life, is help make more entrepreneurs in the world. I think our country needs it. I think the world needs it. You get an absolute economic advantage as a country to have people, and also half the people in the world hate their job and they're not happy. So we want to make sure that we get more people that are just generally happier. Till you meet again, get out there. I want you to go unleash your entrepreneur. Thank you so much for listening.